you feel my mind, or you feel my mind. We could build a dream, start up something new, and the world is on your shoulders, and you feel like falling over. Just let me in your head, so I can be there for you, there for you. The night is young, won't you sing for me? Won't you sing for me? Till we fall asleep.
There we go. Welcome to VC Masters on the Pod TV network. I'm Nick Palavito. I'll be your host for today. And today we have a very important topic and really some great guests that are going to be on. We're going to be discussing things that everybody in the VC world needs to know about. This is very important. It's how to build a moat for your company. Basically, protecting your IP, protecting your intellectual property, and making sure that when your company grows, that grows in a way that you're just not giving away the farm. And intellectual property is very important for all companies, including NVIDIA, which I just found out had 14,300 patents. So with that, we're going to bring in the host of our show, Dr. Salman Azhar, who's a professor at Duke University and heads up the fund, Azimuth Fund. And Dr. Azhar, we have a very special guest today. And so the people that are listening in the VC market really need to know about this topic. Anybody who's involved in startups need to know about this topic. So you may want to introduce your guest and let's get some background on how to build a moat for your company.
Well, it's always great to see you, Nick, and thanks for everybody who's joining us. I have a special guest here, David Frazee, and I want to welcome him to this show because, the reason we invited him to this is that in the last show, which was a couple of weeks ago, we discussed how do you protect your company, how do you build a moat around your company, your idea, etc. And the best person I know in this business is David Frazee. He built his own practice. Actually, he built a practice for a major law firm. I think Wilson Sonsini has been doing a lot of patent law. And one of the work of his architecture is Chorus, which is a company that is built on very, very solid IP ground. Some of this IP is Nobel Prize-winning work. So David, would love to have you kind of share some of your thoughts here. Let's start actually first with the practice that you built. Was it Wilson Sonsini where you built the first IP practice?
Yeah, there's a guy named Erwin Gross who I believe is still at Sequoia Capital now. We both fled to venture capital land because it's much more profitable. But the idea was to build a practice around helping companies build their intellectual capital, because you spend millions of dollars, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars, plus your own life, to create a market just for someone else to take it. You know, the joke is the second mouse to the mousetrap gets the cheese. The first one gets their neck snapped. And, you know, we really thought long and hard about how do you create intellectual capital that would drive value, drive revenue, drive strategic outcomes for your company, not just litigation and licensing. And, you know, there's a number of, over the years, I guess, sort of tricks that have been perfected to help companies brainstorm and map out the critical future of their technology path, which has led to a lot of unexpected, serendipitous, and quite amazing results. And there's some incredible stories in my career of companies that have become more innovative and better and had better exits because of the exercise, even in some cases when they filed 0 patents. So the fact of the exercise is actually an extraordinary thing. And it's something we insist that all of our startups that we invest in actually do.
Wonderful. Let's talk about Chorus. Actually, I'm going to go straight to the point here. And you're welcome to, by the way, talk about NVIDIA as a reference point or something like that. But in the limited time we have, I really want to understand what happened at Chorus and what prompted you to build such a fort, not just a moat, but behind that moat, you also built a fort of IP protection. And how is the foundational patents different from blocking patents, and what are different type of patents and so on? And perhaps, if you want, you can even go how are the different ways to protect your patent? And I know we have only 30 minutes, so I'll leave it up to you how you want to cover this.
That's a lot of questions, but let's see if we can get through it. So let me give a brief background on what Chorus is, and then talk about a few important facts of patent law, and then I'll piece those two things together. So there was a company called Color Kinetics, which was the pioneering company of LED light. And a predecessor fund of my current fund was the first check in that company. Color Kinetics ended up being sold for about $800 million to Philips. The guys went off, they kite surfed in Fiji, they had a good life. Then they got bored, as founders and brilliant people do, and got the band back together and said, we'd like to create something even bigger this time. And the idea they had was to create software-defined light, software dynamically tunable light. Imagine that I could have a light bulb, which is basically a mini computer screwed into a light fixture, where I can, with software, say, I want natural sunlight. I want all the spectral attributes of natural sunlight. Oops, I don't want the circadian resetting blue light now. Press a button, turns it off. I'm in a hospital. I would like to have light that helps kill bacteria. Press a button, make it happen. The capacity at a spectral level to create recipes and devices that allow you to mix any combination of light. And here's the important part. Like, say you're getting rid of the blue light that resets your circadian rhythm. Your eye doesn't notice it because the company has technology which fills in the gaps. Like, we can fill in that 450 to 495 nanometer set of frequencies of blue light by tricking the eye. So what you see is the most beautiful, purest light experience you've ever seen. Now, when we invested, we were in a predecessor fund at the Series A as the first check. And in the current fund, we came in and led the Series C for $20 million originally. When we looked at the patent portfolio, we said, we need to add more money. So we raised around $25 million and ended up being 26 and change. And that extra money went solely to intellectual property. So why would we do that? The answer is, you rarely in your life have an opportunity as a VC investor to create a whole new category, a category that didn't exist before. Human light interaction. Most people listening to this won't know what that means, but it works around the science of knowing that what light does physiologically to us is well known, understood, and important. The same way that, like, food and diet is important to us. Sunlight is the same way. Light is the same way. Light literally can poison you. Light can give you forms of cancer. We know about seasonal affective disorder. That's part of the cultural mythology at a popular level, but there's all sorts of other ways light at a deep level of our bodies changes us. So if we were creating this, we wanted to make sure that we had a natural and legal monopoly. Monopoly is a bad name, but patents are a legal way to do it, because if you have the right to do a particular thing, the US courts, foreign courts, depending upon where the patents are, will enforce it for you. And they can even stop the importation of infringing goods at the dock. I mean, that's what is great about intellectual property, is it gives you a limited monopoly right for a period of time for the innovation that you've put together. So, rolling forward, I'll give the end point, then we'll talk about the process. Chorus today has over 540 patents worldwide that protect every aspect of this new market, which means anyone who wants to offer competing products has to go through us. And the goal we had a decade ago, when we really ramped up the building of this portfolio, was how do we ensure that there's no way around us, right? And so that leads to the key insight of patent law. So most people don't understand forms of intellectual property very well. I was in a board meeting once where a VC said, why would we bother getting patents? Let's just file a trademark instead. It's cheaper. And it's just a totally different form of protection. The only thing people need to know for this conversation is a patent is a right to stop somebody from doing a particular series of steps. So whatever the series of steps could be, take digital video signal or analog video signal, convert to digital, store on medium, include a one-way digital hash, then encrypt, then store again, then decrypt, compare the hash. I mean, like, this series of steps, no one can do that if you have a patent on that. Not exactly that same way. And that leads to the key insight of patent law or patent strategy, which is, what would you do to get around that? So if I have a patent on A plus B plus C plus D, your goal is to get the same commercial effect with A plus C plus G plus H, and do it some different way. So if there is a completely different way to accomplish the same commercial result, your patent is effectively worthless, because someone can just go around it. Why would they pay you a 10% royalty rate when they can do it for free? So the most important one insight you get from patent law is, it's not a right to do something, it is the right to stop somebody from doing something. And it's only as valuable as the capacity to block other entrants from doing exactly that thing. I will also just mention here briefly, we may not have time to get back to this, but maybe in a future program we can. Patents are usually thought about defensively only, like I just want to, or defensively or offensively, meaning I can sue someone for infringing or I can keep someone from infringing, and I can countersue if they come after me. But there's strategic and competitive value that patents give you as well. We may not have time for examples, but I've had companies set up, including one of my own startups, set up large acquisitions by creating patent portfolios for strategic value. I've used patent portfolios to gain access to ASIC design toolkits and fab facilities by trading patents that we didn't need. I mean, there's a lot of things you can do with this. Often when you go through the exercise of thinking through patents, it's a structured creativity exercise. We make all of our companies do it, even when no patents end up being filed at the end. So the questions would be, what are we not, first of all, what are we doing today? Like, what's the series of steps? What are all the choke points? What are the critical things everyone has to do? Secondly, what are we not doing? And this is when you start to unleash the creativity of your team, because most people are just mired in what you're currently doing, but you need to harvest the counterfactual, that which does not exist. What would your worst nightmare competitor do to get around this? If someone could block us from doing what we're doing today, how would we do it? And so the second best way, the fifth best way, the 10th best way, the 30th best way, all need to be thought of today. And then you go back and you remap those again. What are the design arounds to that? What are the critical choke points everyone has to resolve or solve if they're going to compete with us? Then you look at the critical path of technology. What are things coming out in 5, 10, 15 years that would allow us to do this differently? Are there adjacencies in new markets? Could we apply this in some other field? So if I have for example, a bioinformatics technology for large unstructured data sets of genomic information, could I use it for, I don't know, trading in the stock market? And the answer is yes. That's a story I don't have time to tell, but can we apply this in other fields? What business models are enabled by this technology? Are we enabling like SaaS models or service models or alerts or systems or e-commerce? I mean, if the world adopted this technology, what would it look like? What are the applications and services that one would build on top of this? What are the data tools you would use to harvest information and make entire new businesses upon that? What are the pivots? For those who are familiar with lean methodology, which all good VCs are fanatics for, what are all the pivots you could do into other channels or zoom in, zoom out pivots, commercial pivots, technology pivots, segmentation pivots. How would you patent each of those ideas? When you go through this exercise, and there's lots of nuance to that, what you're really doing is an exercise in creativity. And it may turn out that your 30th idea, the 50th idea is the best idea, and one you never would have come up with if you hadn't asked those questions in a structured, systematic way. I'll get to Chorus in a sec, but one thought I'll just throw in here is my friend David Kelly talks about creative confidence. He founded the D School at Stanford and IDEO. What's funny is our kids grew up together. We've never once talked about design thinking. We just talked about the girls. But he talked about creative confidence, and creative confidence is a problem because someone may have said you don't draw very well in second grade, and so people don't think they're creative. What's amazing is I have people who are trained to only get the right answer, because that's what mathematics and engineering often does, who think I'm not creative, I can't think of other things. But when you ask these questions in this particular way, you have a torrent of creativity. You just don't call it that. So it's kind of hiding in plain sight. So I also teach the same technique when I'm working with, say, high impact organizations. This is the structured exercise you use to bring out the creativity inside your own team by just taking things away. You can't do it that way anymore. What would you do instead? What's the design around? What's the alternative? What would you build on top of that? At the end of it, you tell them you've just been an extraordinarily creative team, but you don't say that up front. Anyway, coming back to Chorus for a second. So when we looked at Chorus, our goal was to stop every possible design around that someone would need. So if you're building light, you would need spectral recipe. So a spectral recipe is how do you create from certain building blocks of LEDs, and by the way, including common LEDs, not super fancy, expensive ones. How do you build different kinds of light? Like we have things called zero blue, which is the non-circadian, antibacterial, dynamic vivid or vivid. There's all sorts of different like spectral recipes that had to be perfected to allow people to tune the light in particular ways. There are specific applications like the circadian technology. What are all the patents that you would build around just that? There are enabling technologies, like how do we build LEDs better? How would the construction of LEDs work? There are an entire body of patents around software-defined light, like the electronic systems that you would need, whether at a semiconductor level or otherwise, in order to enable this to work. The optics enabling technology. What are all the things you have to do in that? What are all the things you have to do in the product itself or the modular systems, the applications, right? There's a whole series of data and artificial intelligence applications, because if, for example, so this goes to the business model question, right? If everyone has circadian sensitive lights, which isn't just the lights above my head, but the monitor I'm looking at, the phone I'm looking at, my tablet, my television, we have a large amount of data that could, over time, with hundreds of millions of people, tell us information about disease and health and sleep and circadian reset for travel and jet lag, all those other things. So how would you harvest that data? How would you design and visualize that data? How would you measure things and build sensor devices potentially into the products or the service or this whole chain that you're building? What sort of intelligent control systems would you build? I mean, once you think about what does the world look like when everybody wants to have light, which is pure I'm going to use the term poison, not in sort of the literal sense, but physiologically close. What would the world look like? What businesses would be built? What would people want to do with it? And our goal was to systematically cover every aspect of that before anyone even knew what was going on. And the goal is that when this technology takes off and it becomes required, it's table stakes, it's minimum to have a monitor. If you're Google for all of your employees that doesn't like reset their circadian clock, you have to license from us. One final thing, then we can come back and do specific sub questions. Funny thing happened on the way, which is there was this whole big like thicket of patents that was owned by the Japanese Nobel laureate who invented blue light, or there's a pioneer in blue light, maybe it's more accurate. And so we kind of were stuck there because we had all of it, but for that big piece of the jigsaw puzzle. So we went and just bought his company. And so we have those patents now. So, you know, if you can't build it, you can always buy it. And the price was a little steep. For those who know who Vinod Khosla is, Vinod was the primary investor in the company called Sora, S-O-R-A-A. That's the company we bought. And he's now, you know, part of our team and part of our investor base, I should say. But even if you don't have it all yourself, you can go pick it up on the market. So that was the missing piece of the puzzle.
Wonderful.
Anyway, that was a very, very long answer to like 6 questions.
Yeah, yeah. No, so I apologize starting with 6 questions, and I apologize particularly to our audience that we had like, and actually David as well, that I dumped 6 questions. And I think that we can definitely invite you again and we can continue this conversation. So let's take the pressure off, because I don't think we're going to wind this up in 30 minutes, because I have lots of follow-up questions. So the first question really comes about is like, I'm going to like unpack it in the reverse manner. So Chorus went out, if I recall, EcoSense was the name of the company.
EcoSense was the original name of the company. It's still the brand name for the commercial products. Yeah.
Yeah, and bought out Sora, which was Vinod's company. What prompted Vinod to? And by the way, I know the answer. I'm just playing the straight man here. What prompted Vinod to invest in Sora? Yeah, because I really want to kind of get there's a mission aspect to Sora and Chorus now. And I think that's important for us to know.
Yeah, no, in Vinod's case, as I understand the story, and if he ever comes as a guest, he can fill in the nuances. His daughter had circadian dysrhythmia issues. And so he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars trying to find specialty lights and lighting for his home. And now we can solve all that problem for $39 with a light bulb. And, you know, this is often the way in which, you know, transformative entrepreneurship or innovation happens, is someone has an unsolved problem and goes on a mission to be hell-bent to solve it. So it was very personal for him, as I understand it. And, you know, it was the team on this side didn't, you know, came at it from a different perspective. They had a vision of light as being this traditional. I mean, if you think, like when I say we invested in a light company, people think you're buying light bulbs, and that's old and it's been around for hundreds of years. But when you say we want to disrupt this traditional industry by making it software defined and dynamic and tunable, people look at you like you're speaking Sanskrit, or like, what are these strange things you're saying? I mean, we love disrupting traditional industries. We love changing entire categories so they're unrecognizable at the end. And by the way, not the question you asked, but one of the particularly painful things I have to do every year as a VC is value this company and fight with the valuation team at my auditing firm, because they want to use traditional lighting companies as multiples to figure out how to value Chorus. And I'm like, well, why don't we value, Uber with taxi cab multiples? Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, because that's the industry we're destroying. So, it's always tough to build new things, but Vinod was heart set to build it, and so was our team, for different reasons.
So just kind of for people's reference, like 10% of people have circadian dysrhythmia, and we don't even know it. And I'm actually one of those people, and I didn't know it until I knew that this was a thing. I just had trouble sleeping, and I had trouble waking up, and that's kind of like the classic symptom. So if you have those symptoms, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to diagnose you. If you have those symptoms, just watch out for that. So this is, you went out and bought this, and I'm just going to share this because I helped a lot of my professor colleagues at Duke launch startups. And what I discovered is that they were really, really great scientists, and the technology was really, really great. But in terms of running the company, it takes a different kind of thing. So, from my perspective, I think Sora and Chorus marriage was really a great one, because there was all this technology. And I felt that Sora was actually underutilizing that. Would you agree with that?
I'm not trying to start fistfights with the parts of the team from Sora.
Okay, all right. Like that, I'm not going to. I'm going to take that question off the table.
What I would say is we have different bench strengths. So the CEO of Chorus is the former CEO of Belkin, and we have people who from Peloton and Apple who have built extraordinarily and transformative consumer brands with a design thinking or human-centered design focus. And so the marriage is ideal. I mean, I'll phrase it that way as a positive, which is, they had, we were already an incredible business ecosystem before the Sora acquisition, but Sora was ahead of us in certain ways, had certain things we didn't have, and had some pieces we were missing. And so, people, by the way, most mergers and acquisitions are total disasters, at least outside pharmaceuticals.
Yeah.
Where they tend to work pretty well. And there's reasons for that, which is a whole separate program we could do. Tech M&A tends to be a failure. This is one that was fantastically awesome. And Mark and the team, Mark is the CEO, really executed to perfection everything that we could have dreamed of as a board and as investors. So this is one of those, synergy is one of those terms that you want to vomit when someone says, but it actually is true here. And that's not very common.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get back to the main topic, which is, what is the difference between a foundational patent and just a patent?
I don't use those terms. I mean, people. Here's the way I'm an absolutist for patents, in the sense that, let me answer something you didn't ask. There's a book that came out years ago called Rembrandt's in the Attic, and the idea was that we all, grandma had this painting in the attic, but it's a Rembrandt. It's worth millions of dollars. Like that, every company has these patents lying around that are worth all this money if we could only harvest it. The problem is most people have finger paintings. Like they're totally worthless. That you change blue to red and suddenly it doesn't infringe anymore. Like the goal of patents is to really go to war for these things. And one of the biggest mistakes people make is they spend like $5,000 on a patent because they want to say they have a patent. Yeah. But that's going to be so easy to get around. Like you want to really spend a lot of time and a lot of money getting the foundation of it right. I didn't say foundational, but the foundation of what you're trying to do, all the designers' alternatives. And there may be derivative patents. We have different terms for them. But like patents that are related in the family, so we can split them off into different parts and these sorts of things. The goal with every patent should be to treat it as a core invention and constellation of inventions with all of the spin-offs, derivatives, alternatives, design arounds, and then you can do what you want with it. So to me, every patent should be foundational. I mean, people often use the term foundational patent to talk about something new and in a field which defines like a key aspect. Like we talk about foundational patents with CRISPR or with gene editing, for example. But I apply the same. I don't look at patents as this is the fundamental patent to an industry. I say every patent should be built for war, to be $1 billion on the line. And I actually was a patent litigator when I started my career, as well as strategist. So I came at it with the idea that I saw Chernobyl. I want to build the safety rods better. Like, we didn't build these things for vanity. We built them to go to war. And the Chorus portfolio is that. Like, this is built to go to war. We expect to be taking down big companies with billions of dollars at stake. It's built for that. So I just look at every patent deserves all the time and attention and tenacity and energy that one can put into it.
Yeah.
To block everything possible.
Yeah, that is kind of what I was trying to get to. And if I have a water bottle here, which I'm going to keep in front so it doesn't disappear. But yeah, that's a nice magic trick. So there's a patent that I can have on making this water bottle, or I can have patent on making all water bottles, so that you can't change the shape and size of that. And I think this is a kind of a workshop that you did, I remember about 10, 12 years ago with the Coke bottle or something like that. That's kind of what I was thinking about in terms of foundational patent, is more about like a patent on making water bottles as opposed to making a particular type of water bottle.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people, I'll say this, that a lot of people think they have foundational patents and they don't. That's why I say they have Rembrandts, but they're actually they're finger paintings that a 5-year-old did. And it's, you know, the way in which patent strategy is thought about is a throwaway. It's something the engineers do by themselves in isolation, as opposed to the whole team. I mean, what you should have is business development and finance and the board and product market people. Like, everyone should be part of this team, because it's a crucial part of your growth. And you need all the different perspectives. And they can tell stories, not in the next few minutes, but of how the person in the room that had nothing to do with technology had the key insight that changed the whole industry just by asking the right question at the right time in a structured way. And so we want, companies really should be thinking about this comprehensively, truly.
So we just have a few minutes. You have used the phrase meant for go to war, and you have used this phrase particularly for Chorus.
Yeah.
How is Chorus patent portfolio ready for?
Well, what you have to understand is, if you get a multi-billion-dollar or trillion-dollar market, no one's going to let you do it by yourself. Like, that's the way the world works. And so we have to assume we're going to be in litigation with every top patent litigation firm from New York, DC, and Silicon Valley on the other side, with 100 associates and 20 partners with unlimited budget to destroy us. And so you can build a cheap patent by saying, I just want to get something that'll go through the patent office. Or you can say, I know someday the entire company and the entire industry and the future of an industry is going to be on the line. And if you know how litigation works and how something called discovery works and you know, Markman hearings, I mean, if those don't mean anything, don't worry about it. But if you know how what it looks like to go to war, to legal litigation battle, you build with that knowledge and with that anticipation. These were built with that anticipation, and ideally, if you do it well enough, you don't have to go to war, right? That's a mutual assured deterrence. People just leave you alone and say, okay, fine, we'll take the license. But these were built on the assumption that we would be challenged by the world's top litigators, lawyers with unlimited budgets on the other side.
Got it. So there are no workarounds, or the easy, it would take a long time to find workarounds.
We missed them if they're there. I mean, perhaps. I mean, there's, you can't be perfect, but it would be very commercially difficult. I mean, you never get everything in these things, but what you can do is force someone so far out in the periphery, it's just not commercially feasible to do it. And you're just like, I'll just pay the royalty, and the goal here is not, I mean, there will be a licensing program put in place. So I'm not trying to speak on behalf of the board. This is just David, natural person speaking, but the general goal of a licensing program is you want people just to go along with it and pay a fair price and have the whole industry kind of go along and adopt. You don't want to be spending your money on litigation. I mean, we're prepared for it, but you'd like to avoid it, right? And the more you prepare, the less likely it is.
Last 30 seconds for this question. Why do you think Chorus is a career-defining company for you?
It's not often. I'm the outside director, the lead outside director for the first blockchain to go public. I'm doing some big stuff, but I think Chorus is the one, when I die, will be the biggest deal ever, because every photon produced by LEDs on this earth affects our health. And people in the science world have known that forever, but what could you do about it? Nothing. Now, for the first time, we can do something about it. It will touch the most lives with the most meaningful impact of any company I'll ever work on. And it's creating a whole new category. Like, we will look back at this as just obvious in 20, 30 years. But today it's entirely new.
Wonderful. Well, we'll definitely look back on the show. There's so many things that you said that I'm going to repeat, but for right now, we are running out of time. So I'll turn it back to our producer, Nick.
Well, yeah, thank you. That was a great conversation, and I'd like to hear more about the applications of the lighting because seasonal affection disorder is a big one in the Pacific Northwest. But also, when I was on the Dreamliner the other day, because I fly a lot internationally, they were doing something with the light, some weird blue light. So I want to hear a lot more about the applications of light. There hasn't been much by media on this, and to me, it's fascinating, especially if you travel internationally because your circadian rhythm gets thrown off. But unfortunately, we're out of time, so we'll have to do that later time. And I want to thank David and Dr. Salman Azhar and the viewers in the United States and, of course, around the world on the Pod TV network, on Roku, Amazon Fire, and LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. And we'll see you next week on VC.
I go anywhere with you, 'cause you fill my mind, or you fill my mind. We could build a dream, start up something new, and the world is on your shoulders, and you feel like falling over. Just let me